Hi folks, welcome back. I hope you're all doing well. There's been a lot of studies, some of which I've covered on this channel, about whether LLMs are any good at reasoning and problem solving, but not so much of whether they are creative or not. And that's what this paper looks at. The authors in this paper set up a controlled experiment to see if LLMs can surpass the creativity of humans on a given controlled task. And to give you the headline findings right up front, what they found was yes, LLMs are more creative than humans, sometimes substantially so. But they also found, very surprisingly, that while letting humans pair up with AIs improves their creativity, the LLM by itself was more creative than even augmented humans. One of their interesting subsidiary findings is that the raters who were judging the creativity of these tasks, when they were told that a particular output was generated by AI, they were much harsher in rating that output. So let's look at some of the details of how this experiment was set up and what exactly it measured. Now, right off the bat, you might ask, well, how were they even measuring creativity and what the task was? In terms of the definition, they went with what is by now a fairly standard definition from prior literature, which is the ability to come up with new ideas that are surprising and also valuable. And to be specific, they picked 3 criteria. The idea should be novel, surprising, and useful. That was the rubric given to the raters. And what was the task? The task was to write open-ended text of around 150 words as an answer to one of these 2 questions. If you had the talent to invent things just by thinking of them, what would you create? Or imagine and describe a town, city, or society in the future. So this is a somewhat open-ended imagination and writing task. For the humans that participated, they had about 4,000 participants, and they were compensated for their time in participating in the study. But they had the lure of an additional bonus if their idea ended up being in the top 10% most creative ideas. On the other side, to judge the creativity of these answers, they enrolled 3,000 human raters. So these 2 creative writing tasks they gave to both LLMs and to humans. And which LLMs? They used ChatGPT based on GPT-4 and Bard. Now, that choice is a bit surprising to me because Bard is based on the previous older version of Gemini, not the current version of Gemini. So it is not the latest model from Google. And this is a graph of the main finding where along the x-axis you see the creativity score, and on the y-axis you see how often that score was achieved. And you can see this pink hill, which is the score for ChatGPT-4, whereas the human baseline is this green curve over here. And you can see that the GPT-4 curve is much more to the right of the human curve. So it scores substantially higher and uniformly so on creativity compared to humans. Bard is actually a bit behind humans, but like I said, I don't think that's surprising because that's an older version behind Google's current best model. And this difference is quite stark. Among the top 1% of answers, so 17 answers, 8 were generated by ChatGPT, 3 by augmented humans, so humans combined with an LLM, and 6 by humans alone. And this table has a more detailed breakdown. If you look at the top 10% of most creative answers, not just the top 1%, GPT-4 generated 57%, nearly 57% of the top 10% answers, whereas humans only had about 18% of the top 10%. The other surprising finding was that humans, along with LLMs, scored much lower than the LLM alone. The authors are hypothesizing that this is mostly due to prompting, because when they prompted the LLM alone, they asked it to generate creative answers, whereas the humans that were using LLMs as part of the task may not have prompted them in the same way. All right, so is it game over for humans? Have they been thoroughly trounced? Well, there is one bright spot, and that is in the diversity of the generated content. So if you look at the number of different unique ideas, humans still outperform LLMs on that dimension. On the rating side, the other finding was that when the raters were told that a given answer was AI generated, they were much harsher in scoring it. This is a phenomenon known as algorithm aversion, and it has been seen in many other contexts as well, not just in LLMs. So that was a quick look at a paper which showed, at least for this specific task, that LLMs, especially GPT-4, can outperform humans in an open-ended creativity task. And I think that is a fairly significant finding. I hope you enjoyed that. If you like content like this, please consider subscribing, like the video, and I will see you next time. Thank you very much.